Okay, excellent. So hopefully my battery will hold out, and we'll prove that and give a share even using a mobile phone. Let me just see how this is going. Okay. Okay, so welcome back after the summer break, and apologies for that delay in starting things. So we'll go straight to the Mishnah on Kushkaf Gimel Amud base, which and really we'll look at two topics. We'll obviously our focus is on Hilchos Muktzah, but we'll touch a little bit on Hilchos Tum and Tara because the Mishnah draws us into this. So, first of all, the Shiur of the Mishnah, I couldn't exactly understand the case, probably due to my ignorance of olive production. But this Kaneh seems to be a reed or a cane, which, if it doesn't have a chaburah, if it doesn't have this knot at the end, it seems to be just a tube. Then, in that case, it seems to be a hollow tube, and therefore it does have a base kibble. It can receive things. It can hold liquid because it's a tube, but it won't sample the oil because it will just flow straight out of it because it's just a hollow tube. Whereas if it has the knot at the end, it seems to be that acts as a block at the end, and therefore in the process of turning over the olives, it samples some of the oil and gives the oil manufacturer an indication whether things are ready or not. So that seems to be more or less the Matthias. I couldn't quite understand the Matthias. Maybe someone can help me. It seems like you gather together the olives when you want to press them, and the oil gathers somehow, and you turn it over to see whether it's reached some stage of readiness. Does anyone understand what that stage of readiness was, or what the farmer is checking for?
Could it be like a mash that's got solid and?
Okay, just start speaking, and then I'll come to you. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise we couldn't hear it.
They themselves come to the olives back.
Yes.
Because they're ooze. So they're ready to go.
Well, so before you press it, okay. So I understood in Russia, you gather the olives, and then they ooze. And why? What are you waiting for? And why are you waiting before you press it? If when they're going to be pressed, they're anyway going to be squeezed. Sorry. Yeah.
They're quite hard. They're ripe to do either. They're not ready to be. The oil is still stuck with them. So you leave them to kind of ripen in a time basket. But over time, then that starts to break them down. So now they can use a bit of oil without them. You're using the stick, turn it around, just check. So mix it around.
Yeah, an oil check stick. Yeah. Right.
Which end?
Yeah.
If you have a straw, you put it into some ordinary straw. Top straw.
Right. Okay, so just for those online, and then sorry, Gary, I know if you're waiting. The suggestion is that what's clear is that you gather the olives and you wait for them to begin oozing before you take them off to be pressed. The suggestion is that the olives need to begin breaking down, otherwise the oil is locked in them. Olives are quite hard when they're unripe, and therefore they're not ready for pressing. And once they begin softening and oozing, then they're ready for being pressed. And the bekak, we're not exactly sure which ends of the Kaneh the bekak is. but somehow the pakak enables. Let's go simple. Presumably the pakak is at the bottom of the Kaneh, and therefore allows a sample of oil to be taken, and use the Kaneh's primary purpose is to turn over the olives, because obviously the ones at the top may be ready and the ones underneath not, or the other way around. And there's some for some reason that I don't understand exactly in the cholol of the Kaneh. What are you checking for in the somehow the Kaneh also picks up a sample of olives or a sample of oil sorry, right. So it's showing you literally like a dipstick how deep the oil is, or something of the sorts, or maybe some quality of the oil, we're not sure. Yeah.
When you're there now, you press up.
Right. So it allows you to see how deep the oil is, maybe, or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. No, they would be mukta. Sorry, yes. I think it would be also to do this on Shabbos, but nonetheless, this is a kli. But which sort of kli is it? It's a kli shemachta isa. And we'll see that soon in the sources. So a Kaneh is mukta if it's nothing; it's just a reed. It's like a stone. If you specify the Kaneh for oil production, then it becomes a kli. But what sort of kli is it? It's a kli shemachta isa, because indeed on Shabbos you wouldn't be allowed to do this. Hafichas ha-zeitim, you wouldn't be allowed to turn over the zeitim. So we'll come to that. Yeah. But in brief, all the Mishnah says is that once it's designed for olive production, it's no longer mukta. What level of no longer mukta is it? What level of nittel is it? That we'll see. Yeah. Sorry, Gary. Apologies. And I see Josh also has his virtual hand up.
I mean, it's no problem. I hadn't earlier. I didn't hear that anyone else was speaking.
I know. Unfortunately,
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to say I was not being rude. I wasn't trying to be rude.
Yeah.
So looking at, since you started speaking, I was looking at the Wikipedia article, and it says one of the things that happens is the olive oil is separated from the vegetable water, because the olive oil will rise and the water's heavier, and you want to try and get it pure, because otherwise, if it's mixed with the water, it degenerates faster.
But is that at this stage or only at the pressing stage? Gary's saying that
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I suspect that's at the pressing stage. Gary's saying that the olives include oil, but they also have water in them, like other fruits do. And you want to ensure that the oil separates in the water. But I suspect, in my ignorance, I suspect that may only be at the pressing stage rather than at this stage. So, Josh, you had your virtual hand up?
Yeah, I just thought that I don't know the answer to your question, what he's checking for, but I thought that the kesher, whatever that looks like, is at the top, and it was like, because Rashi compares it to a quill, right? So I thought the idea was you're drawing up the oil, like, if you stick a straw into water and then you block the top. I thought it was more like that.
Yeah, so thank you for saying that. And Paul was suggesting this also. Josh is adding that Rashi compares it to a quill. And we think that quills work for osmotic pressure through, like the straw that draws things up. Yeah, where you block the top, and the oil level climbs. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, quills can be made from reeds. Yeah. Right. Okay, so after this year, we will have to Wikipedia what exactly the science of the thing that's bothering me is see, normally with the straw, the way it works is you don't cover the top initially. You put it in, and if oil goes in, then you block the top, and then you pull it up, and the vacuum pulls it up. Here, if there is a pakak in the top, I'm not sure how a blocked tube, when you put in, on the contrary, it would stop oil getting in because it's blocked at the top. It could be put in at an angle, and then when you straighten up, it pulls it up, because it also allows it to flow in. Yeah. Right, it blocks one end, but how does that draw up oil? And like a cup or like a straw where you block the top? You mean just like a cup? There's a little cup at the top. Yeah, that's one model. That could be. But Rashi does make, Josh has pointed out, Rashi makes a comparison to a Pekak Kaneh kulmus. Why is he making that comparison to the quill? What I do know is in the non-Pekak case, that's the later Rashi, and it's clear in Rashi, even though it has a base kibble because it's a hollow tube, it's just not also lekabel, and therefore that's insufficient. It's not designed for that. You don't want to use it for that because the oil won't stay in. Yeah.
Using the block, that is block blockage. Well, if you put that in, that will be absorbed into it. But if you don't, in the case, if you don't have a cup there, there's nothing to hold into it. So you can't have nothing to see. Put the incident moving then it's turning over. You look and you'll see them because the tropical it absorbs oil. Yeah, I thought it was a similar idea, but I had top and you turn it upside down, then what's gone up through capillary action, then when you turn it upside down, it goes down to the bottom through gravity, and so it's very not.
But it doesn't sound like Rashi saying that the cuck itself is what absorbs the oil. It sounds like the Kaneh becomes a kli kibble because, again, let's remind ourselves: if you just have a tube, that's shutter kliates. Why? Because things flow in and out, and therefore, even though it can hold things, it is a curved tube. It's not utterly carbon in Rashi. If it has a bekak, it is. So either the bekak holds things like a cup or holds things like a vacuum pressure, the capillary action tube. But I don't think it means that it's absorbing it like a shmata.
Into the oil, that's what it's doing. Exactly. She says it's clean because the cat widens the cat out. Wider. That gives it the big.
Sorry, which Rashi?
To cleave the fish out the rocky dog. So, the way you a bit wider, therefore you get a stable.
Again, for those online, Paul is pointing out let me actually take the points one by one. So again, I want to come back to that, but again, you're arguing that the cuck itself is absorbing.
You've got a bit of work that's going to hold it.
Right. Okay. Yes. No, because Rashi's saying that the point is that you want it as a kli kibble. It's also lekabel.
But doesn't mean that what we use to check is.
So why is it makabel? Why do you want it to be a kli kibble? I mean, no, but the point is that the Kaneh now becomes a kli kibble. It becomes a receptacle, right? So, and that's what you're using to check. What you want it to, because that says it's also the kabel, because you want it to receive. You want this kli to contain oil, because that's how you check, and that's. I'm going to put the suggestion on hold because at the moment I don't think it's correct reasoning in the sugya. Paul is pointing out that Rashi says that it's somehow thick at the bottom. Of Bereisha Katas, it's yeah.
Maybe it's got this picture.
Yeah. I don't have a picture, my Gemara. What's the picture?
Actually, wide on the outside.
I wondered whether this isn't a cuck that someone has put in at all. I wondered whether it grew that way. It's like in English we also use a knot in that word. I wondered if this was the reason why Rashi says it's wider, because it's knotty, like a knot of wood. It's a Kaneh that's grown with a blockage at one end, and that's what I was picturing, possibly based on this of Paul's that No, on one end it's blocked, and it's like a cup, effectively. So a tube, and on one end of the tube it's blocked with a growth. Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I was picturing it, actually. Yeah, and that's what. Correct.
Then it's back again.
No, Rashi, there's two Rashis. On the Mishnah, Rashi says, "L'hafcham v'livdok in common kol tzarchon." You're just using it to turn over. But then later, the Gemara says, "Hoifchei v'roya, v'cholol roishesh mishtaya sham al yidei shupokuk b'keshem in Hashem and azov ben Zeitim." So it forms some little dip, either the whole length of the tube or like just a dip where the pekak is itself. There's like a dip, like a crater in the top of the pekak. Yes.
Fit enough in it, go all the way down, and if I was going to turn it over and actually see oil there, it's a lot of oil. Like, you're not going to get that much. You have to press. That's not what the oil is going to come out at this point. That's thinking it from a physical perspective. There is still enough oil to see it would be a lot of oil.
Yeah, I don't know, and how deep is the oil, and how much oil do you need to know it's ready? Okay, let's put this all on hold. I'd be grateful if anyone is happy to do a bit of Wikipediaing around this and see if we can discover what this process is, whether it's still done in traditional oil manufacturing practices. I don't want us to spend the whole of our Shiur on this. But it's always a little flawed learning when we're not sure of the Matthias. You're always at risk of messing up the Lomdas Halacha if we don't really understand the Matthias. Okay, what I want to focus on is in the time remaining is actually getting back to Hillel's point, really, and just understanding what sort of keli this is and what halacha is being said. So basically, the Mishnah tells us that, okay, in Hilchas Tumah, it has, as the Gemara will analyze, it's got its own rules, and we'll get to that. But as far as Hilchas Muktzah is concerned, as long as you've dedicated this Kaneh for oil manufacture, it's a keli. Fine. What sort of keli is it? So I printed in the sheets. Did everyone manage to see the sheets or have a look at them? I printed my copy. If I can find it, I hope I brought it. Okay, I'm not sure I brought the sheets. I'll have to rely on my notes. So in the sheets I hopefully printed, the Rambam says that Kaneh Shemoskim Bozeisim im Yesh Olav Torah's Kli Hari Kli Kli Shemalachta Issa. Now, this is a very interesting language. Let's first of all take the source simply and then analyze it better. So on a broad brushstroke level, the Rambam is he's posking in our Mishnah. That's where he's coming from. Number one. Number two, he says it's a kli, which is what the Mishnah says. And number three, he says it's kli shemlachta issa. Why is it kli shemlachta issa? Because of Hillel's point that you're not allowed to press olives on Shabbos. That's obvious. You can't press olives on Shabbos, but nonetheless, it's being used for a job, and therefore it's kli shemlachta issa. That's what the Rambam says. Now, I have 2 points I want to make in the Rambam. The first is I'm not sure that the Rambam is understanding the scenario the same as Rashi, because the Rambam understands that the kli is being used for the Masika. And the Rashi says that this is for after the Masika, for when you gather the olives together and so on. Whereas the Rambam seems to say it's the kli that's used for Masika. So I don't know if the Rambam learns it as the same Mitzvah as Rashi. My feeling is not that the Rambam has a different description of this kli. He thinks it's used for the actual banging, harvesting. Yeah, I've seen when I lived in Shel, we lived next to an olive grove, and I've seen it in action. And they literally spread a mat underneath and they shake the olives off the tree, or bash the olives off the tree. So that's the Masika, the harvesting process of olives. The Rambam says used for Masika. How the Rambam then will learn the rest of the Gemara, in which it says that there's it's not pshuta kliyate. I don't exactly know, but let's Oh, okay, good. So that's the first point. And the Rambam seems to be explaining the Kaneh differently, and I'm not sure how he learns the continuation of the Gemara. The second thing the Rambam says seems a little bit almost tautological, like it's a tautology, it's also circular. He says if it has a Torah's kli, then it's like a kli shemalachta issa. So this is a double strange language. What do you mean if it has a Torah's kli? And if it does, then it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So what's it dependent on? And more than that, what do you mean it's like a kli shemalachta issa? Kli shemalachta issa. It is a kli shemalachta issa. What do you mean it's kli shemalachta issa? So the first point the Rambam makes is that if it has a Torah's kli on it, So it's clear, I didn't print the whole of the Rambam, maybe in hindsight I should have, but I wanted to keep things simple. But in the context of the Rambam, and this does come out from the Shulchan Aruch, it's clear the point the Rambam's making is that you've had machshava to be miyachid it as a kli. So there are thousands of Kanehs floating around in the meadows and fields, whatever it is. If you take one and you make this into your oil making kli, that's what makes this into a kli. And if you have the chance to look at the Shulchan Aruch, that's what the Shulchan Aruch, the context of the Shulchan Aruch was saying, that you need machshava to be miyachid things into kli. In brief, we're not going to go into all halachas now. There are things which machshava alone is not enough. You need maaseh. You can't just look at a random stone in your garden and say, I'm going to begin using it as a paperweight, and therefore it's a kli. You have to do something with it. And there are other things which are even machshava is enough, and that's the topic of the Shulchan Aruch. So that's stage one. Stage two, however, which is more difficult to understand, is what does the Rambam mean when he says harizeh kli shemelachta isa? He says it's like a kli shemelachta isa. Why is it like a kli shemelachta isa? It is a kli that's melachta isa. So the Biur Halacha, which I put again in the Maramakomas, he says that if you have machshava on the Kaneh to make it into a kli, but you haven't yet started using it as a kli, then it wouldn't be a kli shemelachta l'isa. Now, this is a very, very interesting svara, because there's two interesting points in the svara. The first point is he seems to be holding that you can have your cake and eat it. It can go from, again, a regular Kaneh that isn't used for anything is eitzim vavonim. It's just stones. It's not a kli at all, and therefore it's the highest. I want to remind you again what we said at the beginning of when we began learning mukta. We think of things as either they're mukta or not mukta, and we're very used to saying that a kli shemelachta isa, like a saw or a hammer, is mukta. We've seen that language is not correct. Things are mukta with respect to some things and not mukta with respect to other things. A stone is mukta. The object is mukta. A kli shemelachta isa is a kli. And therefore, in some respects, it's not mukta. In other respects, it is. With respect to, because it's a kli shemelachta isa, so with respect to any non-use of it, it's mukta. But if you want to use it l'tzorech gufay, you can. That's the whole previous sugi we learned. That hammer that you want to use to crack a coconut can be used. A kli shemelachta isa can be used l'tzorech gufay. So the Rambam is learning that Pshat in Al Gemara, when Al Gemara says it's, or the Mishnah rather, when the Mishnah says ben kach or ben kach nitel b'Shabbos, what it means to say is it's a kli. Which sort of kli is it? It's a kli shemelachta isa. It can't be moved stam on Shabbos, what we call chamar l'tzel, if you just want to protect it because you don't want it to overheat by leaving it in the sun. But you can move it l'tzorech gufay, and that's all the Mishnah means. Very interesting that can be called nitel b'Shabbos because it can be used as a kli shemelachta isa. That's the chiddush of the Rambam. Now, the Biur Halacha says that if you are miyachid it as a kli, it's now become a kli. And since you haven't yet started using it for oil pressing, it's a kli, it can be moved mechama l'tel. It's not mukta at all. Once you start using it as a oil pressing device or whatever it is, then it becomes a kli shemelachta isa, and that's when this halacha would apply of being able to of not being able to move it mechama l'tel, but you could only use it l'tzorech gufay. It's an interesting chiddush that, because the whole basis in which it works as a kli is because you've specified it for what will be an also use of the oil. Nonetheless, the Mishnah Berurah says this is enough. The counter argument to the Mishnah Berurah reminds us of actually the previous sugya we learned, in which we're looking at the machat and these other things. What makes a kli also to move mechama l'tel? Is it because it's a kli shemelachta isa, or is it because it's not a kli shemelachta l'heta? Once you've dedicated this kli b'machshavtoi, it's true, maybe as the Mishnah Berurah argues, the Halacha argues, it's not yet a kli shemelachta isa, but it isn't a kli shemelachta l'heta, because you haven't specified it for a heta use. And I would suggest maybe this is a pilpul, I don't know, like a nice trush, but it occurred to me maybe this is what the Rambam means when he says how is like a kli shemelachta isa. It's like a kli shemelachta isa. It may not yet be a kli shemelachta isa, as the Mishnah Berurah points out, because all you've done is be miyachid it, but it isn't a kli shemelachta. It isn't literally kli shemelachta isa because you haven't yet used it for isa, but it's kli shemelachta isa because it's not specified for any mutter use and therefore it's just a generic keli, not specified for what to use, and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to move it. Just to summarize, so we don't leave unclear, because I'm aware that I don't want to go over time, but we started a little late. The Mishnah says that bein kach or bein kach nitol b'Shabbos. The Rambam teaches us to understand that to mean it's a kli, but it's a kli shemach to the issa, and therefore it can't be moved stum, what we call chamer l'tzel, to move from the sun to the shade to protect it, but it can be moved l'tzorech gufay, and that's a good translation in the Mishnah. The Rambam holds nice kiddush, and the Halacha talks about cases where it's been specified but not yet used. Interesting thoughts. And the language of the Rambam, maybe as I don't know if this is pshat or I'm being overly drushy in how I'm reading the Rambam. The Rambam says it's kli shemach l'issa, which maybe means to include literally the Mishnah Berurah's case. It's not literally kli shemach l'issa because you haven't yet used it. At least it's possible, but it would nonetheless be like a kli shemach l'issa because it isn't specified for any mutter use. That's a suggested reading in the Rambam. So we'll stop there for today, and Mitzvah Hashem on Sunday we'll finish this sugya. I really want to move on after Sunday because it's a side sugya in some ways, and move on to the next days. But Mitzvah Hashem on Sunday we'll finish. And apologies to those online. I wasn't able to be as interactive as all of those online. It's just this hard managing with a phone. So, but thank you anyway. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.